What's up, y'all? It's Coach JS or JS Method, y'all may know me as, and today we're talking about practicing intensity in League and how to combat autopilot. So it's kind of building on my video from yesterday where we talked about the psychology of learning objectives and that kind of thing. And in the video, I kind of hinted at what's the difference between your subconscious mind playing and autopilot playing. So we're gonna kind of talk about some more about what autopilot is and how to really combat against it. And then we'll also talk about kind of how you can use this information to create a good system for yourself to play with. So the first slide, what is autopilot? So I want to make something clear when we talk about autopilot and when people in the League community talk about autopilot, they're oftentimes talking about a lack of focus. They're talking about a lack of intensity, well, a lack of conscious thought, a lack of, usually they're doing multiple things at once where, they'd be maybe playing the game and then on their second monitor they may be watching a video, or they're talking to their friends, or they're listening to something, or they're just not playing focus at all. Their mind's at a completely different spot, right? So it's just low intensity, not paying attention. It's also one of the biggest indicators that somebody's going to stagnate for a long time is if they are playing on lots of autopilot, right? I usually can tell how fast somebody's going to improve by how intense they are in their sessions. Right? Sometimes a client will come to me and they'll show me a game and they'll be very intense in the review. They'll come with questions and specific things, and you can see while they're playing that they're playing very intentfully. And I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. That person's going to climb very, very far. And then the inverse of that is sometimes somebody will just bring you a VOD. They don't know why they're giving you the VOD. They don't know what they were doing in the game. They're just like, that person, that's a very big indication that you're going to stagnate and progress is going to be slow. So autopilot's a big problem. So what is it? It's just a lack of focus. It's a lack of purpose with your games. It's a lack of intensity. Intensity is a really, really big word. You want to be intense when we play. And I just want to mention that this is different from yesterday in my video. I talked about kind of training our subconscious. It's different than that, right? If we're playing on autopilot, we're not training our subconscious correctly. So that's what autopilot kind of is. The real question is, how do we combat it? So this is a picture from my video yesterday. You really want to get your conscious brain involved. Now, the issue with getting your conscious brain involved is that it is hard. Right here, you can see yesterday in the video, I talked about how your conscious brain, it's very logical, and you can reason through things, but it's very slow and expensive. And what I mean by slow and expensive is it takes real energy. It takes real energy. Discipline or mental energy is kind of, there's the psychological term for it is ego depletion. Ego depletion. And basically what that means is your mental energy is kind of like a gas tank, right? And the more intense you're being with your conscious brain, the more you're kind of going through your gas. And then you can only do that for so long before you're out of gas. And then your conscious brain is not going to work at all, right? It's going to be very, very slow and sluggish, and you're not going to go anywhere. And then you can refuel. You refuel through rest, through eating food, through spiking it. Like there's a bunch of ways that you can refuel it. Effectively, it's rest though. So this means that to get your conscious brain involved, we have to be prepared to put in work. Because it takes mental energy, and mental energy is more than just a metaphor. Mental energy is more than a metaphor. It is a real thing that you can visualize as a gas tank of logical conscious thought. And it's a limited resource, right? So the average gas tank can only last an hour or two. I think the maximum that you can really stretch your gas tank out to is about 2 or 3 hours. I'll get into that next slide. But it takes real work that you have limited amount of. So when you really want to play solo queue, make sure that you kind of are ready to go in there and you're ready to practice and you're ready to work and be intense. Another thing that we talk about is having a learning objective. Get your conscious brain involved by asking yourself questions, right? Give yourself a reference point in your game. Go into the game with a goal, right? Let's say, you want to work on your trade patterns or a certain mechanic, or you're working on your combos or a certain idea like map awareness. Go into a game with a goal like that. My last video was all about learning objectives, so go check that out if you want more on this topic. But the too long didn't watch idea is just give yourself a thing you're working on, and then you can view the whole game through that reference point, right? Maybe your reference point is map awareness, and you can view every play as, was my map awareness good or bad here, right? That's a way you can get your conscious brain involved. So give yourself a reference point, have yourself view your games through a learning objective. That helps quite a bit. And this is kind of how we're going to combat autopilot. We're not going to play longer than our gas tank, and we're going to give our conscious brain some cues to be active. So this goes into like creating a good system. So up here, you can see the system I use. This is a system that I initially stole from Coach Curtis, and I've kind of adapted it to work for me. These are clips from, or this is a screenshot from February, at the very beginning of February, when I was keeping track of my games. And basically what it is I create a system where I'm like, okay, I believe that my gas tank will last me 3 games. So I'm going to make my system a maximum of 3 games, right? If the games go really long. So I'm going to make my system be 3 games long, because I think that's how long my gas tank, my mental energy can stay up for. And I can still make meaningful progress. And then I'm like, well, how am I going to make sure my brain's engaged? Personally, I'm a note taker. And again, you can see I have the word intensity here because intensity is so important. And effectively what I mean by intensity here is just how focused was I? How in the moment and thoughtful was I in the moment? And that's what I would do. Every single game I'd play, I would ask myself and I would reflect. I would say, okay, how intense and how focused was I this game? And then I'd write down what happened, and then I'd write down some notes. So then if I click here, it would be like a paragraph written for each thing. Because I'm a note taker, that's what works for me. That makes sure my conscious brain is involved, because as I'm playing, I'm thinking about things I want to take note of. But it can work. There's other ways to do that, right? Going through your learning objectives in respect to your last game played is a really good way, right? You can look back at your last game and say your learning objective was, map awareness, and you can go back and look through each play and say, was I aware of what was going on here or not, right? That's what needs to be in the forefront of your mind. That could be your cue to get your conscious brain involved. So when we're creating our own system, and you can start with this system or you can start with your own, you want to kind of go based off these principles. The first one being, you have a limited gas tank, and we have to kind of create around that. The second one is, find whatever you can do to find ways to get your brain engaged, right? Ask yourself questions, create rituals for yourself, right? That's one of the reasons why we warm up, because when you warm up, you kind of put your brain into a routine where it's like, okay, when we're doing this warm up, we're getting ready to work and put in mental energy. And then, take notes or do reviews, or even do a mental review of kind of what happened in the game and what were the biggest turning points. Have a timer. That helps some people, an interval timer, right? Every 5 seconds, so just hear a beep. And maybe that helps keep you focused. Like, there are other things. Figure out what will help you keep your brain engaged. Maybe some classical music, maybe you listen to Beethoven. I don't know. Just whatever works for you. Make sure that's implemented into your system. Now, the last thing that I wanted to add, which I think is super cool, and I actually haven't heard a lot of other coaches talk about this, is have a stop loss system. So first, I'll explain what stop losses are. Stop losses, it's a term from stock trading where I have a little diagram here where, like, let's say this is the stock and this is kind of the stock graph. And let's say that your original plan was to wait, a month and then sell. And like a month was like way out here, right? But you bought it on this black line. Well, you thought it was going to go up, but if you were wrong, you're just going to cut your losses off right away. So if it goes below this black line, if it goes below your stop loss number, you just sell, you take your loss, whatever. You didn't get to, you didn't play out the full system that you set up for yourself, but you cut off your losses because it's not doing what you thought it was going to do in the first place. So the idea of a stop loss is to limit your loss. Now, this is really important, and this is something that's really important to me because I'm a really emotional, really swingy player. When I'm winning, I win hard and I win for a long time. When I'm losing, I lose hard and I lose a lot, and I lose for a lot of games in a row. And my brain in the moment has tricks it plays on me, right? It has tricks it plays on me. It's like, okay, Jamie, you lost the last 3, but you feel really good and it feels like your gas tank's still full, so play another one. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the night, I've lost 14 straight and I'm down 300 LP. And it's like, holy smokes. So have a stop loss so you can kind of prevent that kind of thing for you. right? So for me, it's like if I ever lose 3 games in a row, I don't care if it was my plan to play for the whole day. If I ever lose 3 games in a row, I am done for the day. And I'm not playing ranked again until I can kind of completely reset. Through sleep initially, and then, more after that. The opposite is also true. If you have something that is a cue to your brain that you're having a really good day, maybe you can play more, right? Let's say your system is to play 3 games, but they were all really quick wins. Maybe you can allow yourself to play more so you can let your wins run, right? Don't be afraid to let your wins run and cut your losses immediately. So this is kind of how you create your own system. If you want something to start with, I recommend the 3-block system. Again, this is something I stole from Coach Curtis. The basic idea is you limit yourself to 3 games. You review after each game is what I do personally. You can do it before, after the block if you'd like. And then you take down some notes and take down some intensity. That works really, really well for me. I love this system. I know a lot of my clients, their gas tank isn't that big and the games last longer in lower elo. So they actually like blocks of 2. That's completely perfect. I love blocks of 2. Maybe you play blocks of 4, whatever it is. This kind of follow these fundamentals and you can really create a system for you, for your lifestyle that works good for you, that's sustainable. And my biggest tips are, have stop losses and, allow your systems to run a little bit, your wins to run and cut your losses off immediately. But I hope you guys appreciate this video. Again, intensity and mental focus and not autopiloting is like the #1 indication for success from my clients that I've seen personally. So really try to, if you want to climb, find ways to get your brain engaged. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any ideas for tomorrow's video. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a blessed night. Peace.